The date is February 1st, 1959. Somewhere deep in the northern Ural Mountains of the Soviet Union, 9 people are still alive. The temperature is minus 30 degrees Celsius. That's not a number, that's a sensation. It's the feeling of your nose hairs freezing solid the moment you step outside. It's the way your fingers stop hurting after a while, which is the part you should be scared of. At minus 30, exposed skin dies in minutes. Metal burns. Breath turns to crystal before it even leaves your mouth. The wind-up there has a name. The local Mansi people call this stretch of the Urals Kholat Syakhl. In their language, it means Dead Mountain. 9 people are camped on the slopes of Dead Mountain tonight. They are not tourists. They are not lost. They are some of the most experienced young hikers in the Soviet Union, and they have chosen to be here, on this ridge, in this cold, under this sky, because they wanted to conquer something. By morning, they will have vanished. By the time investigators find them weeks later, some of their bodies will be missing eyes. One will be missing a tongue. Their ribs will be shattered as if something hit them with the force of a car crash. Their skin will be the wrong color. Their clothing will be radioactive. And the Soviet government will look at all of that evidence, all of those broken bones and missing pieces and burned Geiger counters, and they will declare the cause of death a compelling natural force, then seal the files for 30 years. This is the Dyatlov Pass incident. Nobody has ever fully explained it. To understand what happened on that mountain, you need to know who these people were. This was not a group of beginners who wandered somewhere they shouldn't have been. This was a group of athletes, scholars, engineers, people who had trained for years, who had survived brutal Siberian winters before, who knew the difference between a dangerous decision and a calculated risk. Their leader was Igor Dyatlov, 23 years old, a fifth-year radio engineering student at the Ural Polytechnic Institute, and by all accounts someone who was born to lead expeditions. He was meticulous. He was calm under pressure. He had organized and completed multiple complex winter hikes across terrain that would flatten most people. His teammates trusted him completely. The rest of the group, Zinaida Kalmogorova, 22, one of the most beloved members of the team. Energetic, warm, someone every expedition wanted along. She kept a detailed diary. Yuri Doroshenko, 21, physically powerful, one of the strongest hikers in the group. Yuri Krivonischenko, 23, a graduate engineer who had worked near the KYSHTYM nuclear disaster site, a detail that becomes deeply uncomfortable later. Rustam Slobodin, 23, an engineer, athletic, disciplined, experienced. Nikolai Thibault-Brignoles, 23, an experienced engineer trusted by everyone in the group. Alexander Kolevatov, 24, a physics student with prior work experience at a classified nuclear institute in Moscow. Another detail to hold on to. Lyudmila Dubinaina, 20, the youngest woman on the team and one of the fiercest. She had already completed several Category 3 expeditions, the highest difficulty classification. She was not there to be carried. She was there to compete. And finally, Semyon Zolotarev at 37, he was the oldest member of the group by more than a decade. He was a World War II veteran. He had survived the Eastern Front. He was joining this particular expedition last minute, which struck some members as slightly odd. He was practically a stranger to the rest of the group, but he came with strong references, and nobody turned him away. 9 people. Total combined experience. Staggering. Their goal was to complete a Category 3 hike through the northern Urals in the dead of winter. A journey of roughly 300 kilometers that would take them through some of the most remote and punishing terrain in the entire country. At the end of it, they would be awarded the highest Soviet hiking certification available. They had done hard things before. This was supposed to be the next hard thing. They set off from the city of Sverdlovsk on January 23, 1959. For the first week, everything was fine. Their diaries and photographs paint a picture of a group that was cold and tired and completely infectiously alive. They joked. They took photographs of each other clowning around in the snow. Krivonischenko played the mandolin at camp. Dubinaina sang. They had an internal group newspaper, handwritten, sarcastic, full of inside jokes, that they called the Evening O'Torton, named after the mountain they were heading toward. The February 1st edition had a mock headline warning of a new dangerous sport, ski tourism. By January 31st, they had resupplied at the last human settlement they would pass through and cached food and equipment at a base camp on the edge of the tree line. Things they planned to collect on the way back. February 1st. They begin their ascent of Kholat Syakhl Dead Mountain. This is where the picture starts to go wrong. The weather is deteriorating. Visibility is dropping. A combination of low cloud and wind is dragging them off course, pushing them slightly to the west of where they intended to be. At some point in the late afternoon, Igor Dyatlov makes a decision. Instead of descending back into the tree line to camp, which would have been safer, warmer, more sheltered, he decides the group will dig in on the open slope and wait out the night where they are. It's an unusual call. Experienced hikers almost always prefer tree cover in these conditions. But Dyatlov was apparently thinking about the following morning. Descending and then reascending would cost them time and energy. He chose efficiency over comfort. He set up camp on the slope of Dead Mountain. That is the last documented decision Igor Dyatlov ever made. The last known photographs are from that afternoon. Wind-battered faces, gray sky, a tent being assembled in the snow. Everyone still there, still upright, still alive. After that, nothing. The group was due back in Sverdlovsk by February 12th. They didn't arrive. The days kept passing. By February 20th, the families had applied enough pressure that a formal search was organized. Volunteer hikers, student searchers, and eventually the Soviet military and police, all dispatched to trace the group's route. On February 25, 1959, they found the tent. It was still on the slope of Kholat Syakhl, still mostly standing, still clearly the camp of Igor Dyatlov's team. But it had been cut open from the inside, not unzipped, not torn by wind. The cuts were deliberate. Multiple slashes through the fabric, made by something sharp, made by someone who was inside the tent when they made them. The tent was still packed with almost all of the group's equipment. Their food, their stoves, their warm outer clothing, their boots, everything they needed to survive outside in -30 degrees, left behind. 9 people had cut their way out of their own tent in the middle of the night in one of the coldest places on Earth and walked away from everything that would keep them alive. The searchers followed the tracks in the snow. The footprints led down the slope, away from the tent, toward the tree line, roughly 1.5 kilometers away. There were 8 or 9 distinct sets of tracks, though the wind had distorted some of them. Crucially, the tracks showed no signs of panic. They were not running. Whatever caused 9 experienced people to flee their tent without boots in -30-degree temperatures, in those first steps at least, they were walking. On February 26th, they found the first 2 bodies. Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonischenko, the 2 Yuris, were found at the edge of the forest. Near the remnants of a small fire they had apparently tried to build beneath a large Siberian cedar tree. They were shoeless, barely dressed. Their hands were burned, suggesting they had been alive at the fire long enough to reach into it, perhaps trying to pull burning branches out, perhaps delirious with cold. Branches had been broken from the cedar tree up to about 5 meters high, the kind of height you'd only reach if someone climbed up there. They had died of hypothermia. Nearby, between the cedar and the tent, searchers found 3 more bodies in the days that followed. Igor Dyatlov himself, found on the slope facing back toward the tent, as if he had been trying to return to it. Zinaida Kolmogorova, found not far away in a pose that suggested movement. She seemed to have been crawling when she died. Rustam Slobodin, found between them. He appeared to have a small crack in his skull, though the Soviet medical examiner initially classified it as non-lethal. He had died of hypothermia. 5 bodies, all found in the snow, all killed by the cold. Tragic, but not yet inexplicable. People die in winter storms. People make terrible decisions in the dark and the wind. Then May came. The snow began to melt, and they found the last 4. Ludmila Dubinina, Semyon Zolotarev, Alexander Kolevatov, Nikolai Thibault-Brignoles. They were discovered in a ravine, buried under 4 meters of compacted snow. They had not just wandered away. They had apparently dug themselves a shelter, a den in the snow, and tried to survive. The medical examinations of these 4 changed everything. Thibault-Brignoles had massive skull trauma. Not a crack, a fracture so severe, so deep, that the medical examiner compared the force required to produce it to the impact of a car crash. He had been alive and walking after leaving the tent. Something had done that to his head in the hours that followed. Dubinina and Zolotarev had shattered ribs, multiple ribs on both sides, the kind of bilateral fracture pattern caused by enormous sudden compressive force. The medical examiner noted that this type of injury is typically seen in car crash victims or people caught in industrial accidents. Crucially, there was almost no external bruising. Whatever crushed their chests from the outside had not broken the skin. And then Dubinina's mouth. Ludmila Dubinina was missing her tongue. Her eyes were missing. The soft tissue of her face had been removed. Zolotarev was also missing his eyes and the flesh around his eye sockets. The Soviet investigators offered an explanation. The bodies had been lying in a streambed under the snow for months. Decomposition, scavenging, water flow, these things can strip soft tissue. Some forensic experts support this. Others point out that the pattern of tissue loss is inconsistent with natural decomposition, and that specific tissue was absent while surrounding areas were preserved. Several items of clothing taken from the bodies tested positive for radiation, specifically on Krivonischenko's and Zolotarev's garments. The contamination was detected by a Geiger counter during later testing. Soviet authorities acknowledged the results but never provided a satisfying public explanation for them. Multiple witnesses, searchers, medical personnel, family members, described the bodies as having a distinctly orange or tan discoloration. The official explanation was again decomposition, but the color struck people who saw it as something else, something stranger, something they didn't have the vocabulary for. The official Soviet conclusion, delivered after weeks of investigation. The group had died as a result of a compelling unknown natural force. No criminal case was opened. No individual was charged. The files were classified. And then the mountain went quiet again. Here is the thing that nobody has ever been able to explain away. 9 experienced people cut their way out of their tent, in the dark, in -30 degrees, left behind everything that could save their lives, and walked calmly into the night, and we still don't know why. Decades have passed. The Soviet Union has collapsed. The files, or most of them, have been released. Investigative journalists, forensic scientists, physicists, and mountaineers have all taken their turn on this case. Nobody has closed it. The first theory is the avalanche, and it's the one Russian investigators officially revisited in 2019 and currently consider most likely. The argument goes like this. Something, a slab of snow, a delayed snowslide triggered perhaps by their own tent setup, came down on the group in the night. The cuts in the tent were made in darkness and panic, not calm deliberation. The hikers fled because they could not unzip the tent fast enough and needed out now. The catastrophic injuries to Dubinina, Zolotarev, and Thibault-Brignoles were caused by the snow slab impact itself. The others died of exposure as they tried to make it back. It's coherent. Avalanches are deadly and unpredictable. Slab avalanches in particular can cause enormous blunt force trauma with no external laceration, exactly matching the injury patterns found. But the counterarguments are real and serious. The slope where the tent was pitched measured approximately 15 to 20 degrees. Avalanches typically require a pitch of at least 30 degrees. The Soviet investigators who were first on scene found no evidence of avalanche debris around the tent. Experienced searchers who worked the site said the tent itself, though damaged, was not buried or displaced the way you would expect from a snowslide. And critically, if the group was hit by an avalanche while inside the tent, why were the bodies found in a pattern suggesting they walked away calmly, in an orderly group rather than scattered by impact and debris? It may be an avalanche, but if it is, it's a very unusual one. The second theory is stranger. and for some people, far more compelling. Infrasound is sound below the threshold of human hearing, below 20 Hz. You can't detect it consciously, but your body can. Certain frequencies of infrasound are known to cause physiological effects: chest vibration, disorientation, panic, and most disturbingly, a profound, inexplicable, overwhelming sense of dread. Some researchers have proposed that the specific topography of Kholat Syakhl, the shape of the ridge, the direction of the prevailing wind, could create what's called a Kármán vortex, a standing wave of infrasound that pulses at a frequency known to affect human psychology. Think of it as the mountain itself generating a sound that you can't hear but that your nervous system interprets as a primal alarm. Something is wrong. Get out. Get out now. This theory could explain the behavior. Not the injuries, but the behavior. Why calm, experienced people cut their way out of their tent in the dark and walked away from everything. Not running in terror, but moving in the focused, driven way of someone who has made an instinctive decision that they cannot rationally explain. The counterargument: infrasound phenomena of this kind are real, but their effects are typically temporary and would likely have dissipated once the group moved away from the trigger point. It doesn't explain why they didn't return to the tent once the effect passed. And it doesn't touch the physical injuries at all. The third theory involves the Soviet military. In 1959, the Soviet Union was conducting active weapons testing across remote regions of the country. Parachute mines, experimental ordnance, devices that could, theoretically, cause the kind of catastrophic internal damage found on the bodies without leaving obvious external wounds. Krivonischenko had worked near KYSHTYM. Zolotarev was a veteran with unusual connections. Kolevatov had worked at a classified nuclear facility. Some researchers have asked seriously whether this group or some members of it may have stumbled into an active military test zone. Whether the orange skin and radiation on their clothing was not from decomposition or contamination at a prior work site, but from something they encountered on that mountain. The classified nature of the Soviet investigation feeds this theory. The speed with which the files were sealed, the specific exclusion of the public from the search area, the fact that multiple families reported being told quietly to stop asking questions. The counterargument: the Soviet Union had reasons to classify almost anything involving a mass death of students in a remote area. It was an embarrassment domestically and a liability internationally. Classifying it doesn't necessarily mean they had something specific to hide. And no physical evidence of weapons testing, craters, ordnance fragments, structural damage consistent with explosive force was ever documented at the site. Then again, if the cover-up was thorough enough, that's exactly what you'd expect. The fourth theory is less about what killed them and more about what we're not being told. Early in the investigation, Soviet authorities briefly considered the possibility that the hikers had been killed by members of the local Mansi community, perhaps in a conflict over sacred land. That theory was investigated and dropped. The injury patterns were inconsistent with human attack, and the Mansi trackers who helped locate the bodies were, by all accounts, genuinely trying to help. But the question of what the Soviet government was hiding didn't go away. The fact pattern is this: 9 people die in strange circumstances. The Soviet government classifies the investigation. Families are discouraged from asking questions publicly. The files are sealed for decades. When they are eventually released, researchers note that they appear to be incomplete, that certain documents seem to be missing, that the chain of evidence has gaps that are hard to explain by accident. A number of serious researchers, not conspiracy theorists but journalists, former investigators, and academics, have concluded that whatever happened on that mountain, the official record of it was deliberately shaped. That someone decided what the public version of events would be, and made sure everything else was removed. The question that haunts this theory is not whether there was a cover-up. Many investigators now accept that the record was interfered with, but what was being covered up? A military accident? A classified technology that was seen? Something that happened to the group that the Soviet government simply could not afford to explain to the world in 1959? The counterargument is the same one it always is: the Soviet government classified things reflexively. Embarrassing events involving citizens dying in preventable ways were routinely buried. The cover-up, if there was one, may have been about managing optics rather than hiding a specific catastrophic secret. But then you think about those ribs, that missing tongue, the orange skin, the radiation, and you wonder what kind of optics require a 30-year silence. The pass was named after him, eventually, Dyatlov Pass. It sits at 1,079 meters above sea level in the northern Ural Mountains, in a country that no longer technically exists. You can still go there. People do, hikers, researchers, documentary crews, people drawn to the unanswered question of it like moths to something that burns. The cedar tree is still there. The one the two Yuris died under, the one someone climbed in the dark to break branches for a fire that wasn't enough. Still standing. It doesn't care. No explanation offered in the 66 years since has accounted for everything. Not the injuries, not the behavior, not the radiation, not the skin. Every theory solves part of the problem and leaves the rest sitting there in the cold, unexplained, waiting. The case was officially reopened by Russian authorities in 2019. They investigated for over a year. They concluded, once again, that an avalanche was most likely responsible. They closed the case again. Most of the researchers who have spent years on this disagree with that conclusion. And so the mountain keeps its answer. 9 people set up their tent on that slope on the night of February 1st, 1959. They ate their dinner. They made jokes for their handwritten newspaper. They had been alive for their entire lives up until that moment, and then something happened. Something in the dark, something in the wind, something on Dead Mountain, and then they weren't. Whatever it was, it left no witnesses. Right now, tonight, the snow on Kholat Syakhl is exactly as deep and exactly as silent as it was then. The wind is coming from the same direction. The temperature hasn't changed. And if you were standing on that slope in the dark, you would feel it. That pressure at the base of your skull, that ancient, wordless instruction that your body sends when something is wrong in a way you cannot name. Get out. Get out now. If this story got under your skin, hit the like button and subscribe. There are more cases like this one waiting for you. Come back whenever you're ready to go somewhere dark. Stay curious. Stay weird.